Finally, how is all this presented? This is what worries me, because it's what I would call the triumph of the therapeutic view rather than the tragic. The tragic view says if you go to Washington and you have to form a government, there's going to be a lot of creepy people who know a lot about how to form a government. And you're going to have to pick and choose people. And it's going to be difficult to find anybody in Washington that's not somehow tainted. So what do? You say that you're going to have the cleanest administration that anybody's ever seen, hope and change, the Latinate motto, werewolf sumus, yes we can, the Greek facade at the convention, the Berkeley monument. You put the whole 9 yards into the effort, and then what happens? You found out that you're not Zeus on Olympus, you're just a mere mortal, and you start appointing people like Bill Richardson, Tom Daschle, Timothy Geithner, Hilda Solis, I could go on and on, 12 lobbyists, and you find out that the only way you get anybody to pay your taxes in Washington is nominate them for office. You set the ethical bar so high that even though you're no differently, not that much different than any other previous administration, you suffer, as I mentioned with the Republicans, on spending that additional wage of hypocrisy. The second thing you start to see is that you talk of bipartisanship, an end to red and blue state animosity. And it's the wonderful rhetoric of unity. But then there's crusty people like myself who have spent too much time reading Athenian oratory and what people said about each other and what they actually did, that when I look at a statement like that, I start to think, well, let's see the empirical proof. That's all I ask. So when Barack Obama ran for state legislature, he sued to get everybody off the ballot, all 4 people. Mostly African American. He really disenfranchised their signature. When he ran for Senate, he got rid of the Democratic primary candidate by a mysterious leak that said he had a messy divorce, and lo and behold, lightning struck twice in the general election, and Mr. Ryan, the Republican candidate, had a similar problem that was leaked, and that bam, he was in there. Then when he was a senator, he was the most partisan, according to the National Interest, the most partisan senator of either party. So I didn't see a lot of reaching out. I saw brilliant rhetoric. Red state, blue state doesn't exist anymore. So when he came into office, why did he give fodder for Sean Hannity? Every day you hear a clip from Barack Obama's attacking personally Sean Hannity. And then he mentioned Rush Limbaugh by name, and now we're in this big Limbaugh. The President of the United States doesn't do that. I don't think that George Bush is going to talk about Keith Olbermann every day. He didn't do it. He didn't talk about Maureen Dowd. He didn't talk about Michael Moore. It's beneath the office of the presidency. So what happens to Obama is he suggests that it has messianic tendencies, prophetic abilities, supernatural morality, but then that allows him, through that rhetorical facade, to be pretty much a Chicago politician. And that's what we're seeing. And so it's really tough now to criticize. I know when I write a column, I think twice, because I think when I criticize Bush for excessive spending, when I used to criticize Clinton for triangulation, I would get moderate discussion. If I write a column on Barack Obama, I have to be prepared the next morning to open up the computer and see almost 200 or 300 almost formed stereotype letters. Get over it, your world's over with, you're mean, you're horrible, this type of stuff. And yet this comes from an administration that is prophetic and beyond traditional fallacies and weaknesses. They're super moral, and that's very hard. We're starting to see something that's very difficult, because when Barack Obama says, there's going to be no more earmarks in this utopian budget, there are earmarks. There are earmarks, but yet, if you were to say, Mr. Obama, you're lying, you feel guilty that you've insulted something. I felt bad using the L word the other day in conversation. I said, I'm afraid Mr. Obama lied. Everybody looked at me. He doesn't lie, Victor. Just doesn't do it. That's what So he's created this moralistic approach to politics that makes it very difficult to have legitimate discourse. Now, where does all this lead? Because I want to stop now. We're 30 minutes. When I was your age, most of you students, I was young and idealistic. I'm not young and I'm not idealistic anymore. But I had just been married, and my wife and I had a long discussion. She had some evangelical background, Church of Christ, I might add. and she liked Jimmy Carter, and I didn't care much, and so we were going to vote for Jimmy Carter, and we did. Last time I ever voted for a Democratic candidate. I'm a registered Democrat. That did it. But the point is, why did we do that? And the answer was, we were so sick of the previous administration. You think you heard bad things about Bush? It was Nixon, Watergate, Nixon, Watergate, Nixon, Watergate, Nixon, Watergate, Vietnam, 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 win button Jerry Ford, inflation. And what did Jimmy Carter say? I will never lie to you. He said about 5 things. I will never lie to you. He did. He said, I have gotten over my inordinate fear of communism. This was a Nixon-Kissinger construct, basically. He said that. From November until he entered office, he assured us that the Cold War was mostly the problem in the United States. And what happened? Russia invaded Afghanistan. Russia surrogates went into Central Europe. We had a Holocaust in Cambodia. Hostage taking in Tehran. We sent Ramsey Clark over there with a cake and a Bible. You remember that? He got halfway and he turned around and came back. And he also said that no American soldiers would be killed on his watch. I think they were in a rescue mission. And then more importantly, he set up the conditions where they were going to have to be killed later on unless you were going to surrender U.S. interest. And he said he was going to have town meetings, a new discourse. And then when this all started to unravel, this is what worries me. He wasn't Jimmy Carter, the small-town preacher, the evangelical Christian, the man who turns the other cheek, the devotee of the Sermon on the Mount. He got angry, and he pounded his finger. He wore his cardigan sweaters. He said, you have a malaise. You did this. Meanwhile, Reagan just sort of said, things aren't that bad, and we got out of that. And what I'm afraid that we're seeing now is that we have created a radical shift. Let me just review. A radical shift in what government is, and it represents a deep philosophical belief that life is unfair and life is unfair, but government has the wisdom and the power and the obligation to change it, and it will, and it's going to cost a lot of people money, and to get that tax from people, they're going to have to be demonized. Let me just finish on that last thought. Demonized. 1% pays 40% of the taxes, but if you tax their income at 100%, you're not going to get $1.5 trillion deficit down. You've got to really go after the 1 to 6%, the people who make $250,000 to $500,000. These are the people, as I said, that have family dentistry practices, they're accounting families, they have construction, they pave your driveways. They have a lot of expenses besides just their income, but that's who you have to go after. And you can't call them family business people, your local dentist, the Ivy League law professor. You've got to say that they are the super rich who fly to the Super Bowl and have parties. And once you demonize those people, then the rest of us think, you know what, I don't really care where the money comes. That 5% who took things that didn't belong to them are culpable. And we should worry not because it's disingenuous and amoral to do that, but that 5% is the engine that drives the United States growth, whether you like it or not. Thank you very much.